not just do an anthology of 3 stories, but also have sort of a rotating cast of actors, sort of this troupe that plays all the different characters.
Yeah, so it was in my mind for a while, but when we started writing the screenplay, in the beginning, we were writing the 3 stories. Well, actually, in the beginning, we were writing just the 1 story, then we decided it's going to be more than 1 stories. And then we were starting to write the 3 stories, we started writing them in parallel. You'd see, all the stories playing in parallel. And I had this idea of the same actors playing different characters, but then I felt that it would be too confusing, or you would have to make them so extremely different that it would make sense, and I didn't like that. So we decided with the film is that we would try and separate the stories, show one after the other. And that's when it kind of became apparent that I could actually do that. I could use the same actors because it would be very clear, that they're different characters in each story. And in a certain way, it also made the stories, the way we wrote them, because we write them in parallel and we always kind of were paying attention to their relation, like seeing 2 scenes from the first story, then 2 scenes from the next story. The fact that they were written like that, but then were separated, kind of, painted them with some kind of consistency that is not necessarily literal, but I think it kind of remains. And on top of that, the fact that it's the same actors that play a different character in each story, I think that, helps you bring something, again, unconsciously without necessarily knowing what it is, but, understanding that it's the same actor brings kind of a familiarity from one story to the next, and it kind of builds, although the characters have no relationship to one another.
Joe, you've obviously made The Favorite together. Tell us a little bit about sort of getting the call to return to the Yorgos world.
It was very nice to get the call. Yorgos, reached out with the script and had a conversation, and he said there were these 3 parts, and he explained the structure, which he's just talked about. Before reading it, I knew I would want to say yes. And having had that template from The Favorite and such a brilliant experience on that, I just knew I wanted to jump in. It's the first time I think I've worked with people 2 times in terms of the director and the cast. There's a familiarity and a trust. It's really nice, the ground that you're stepping into, and obviously just such a fan of his films anyway, and Emily and Willem and everyone. I was just very lucky to be invited to the party, and jumped at the chance.
Willem, what about you? You guys had worked together very recently on Poor Things. So tell us about sort of jumping into this world and these characters.
Like Joe, happy to get the call. I had known Yorgos' movies, and I enjoyed them a lot. I liked them a lot, and until even in the English language movies, I thought, I love this guy, but I'm going to be in one of his movies. So Poor Things was such a great experience, and so I was happy, and as Joe said, you're just happy to get the call. I'm always very director-driven in my choices, because I feel like it's easier to relax and give yourself to something when you feel like a director has a vision. So, just happy. I don't see characters. I don't see any of that. I don't think about meaning at the beginning. I read the script and I see what am I supposed to do? And are those things interesting for me to do in this world? And absolutely.
Yorgos, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of what the initial seed of inspiration with Lanthimos was, in terms of sort of the themes that you wanted to explore with this one.
I guess the initial inspiration for me was reading Caligula, the play by Albert Camus, and thinking, how what that would mean in contemporary society and what it would it mean in a very personal relationship and personal life. So that's how we started developing the first story. And then, as I mentioned before, we started wanting to also make a film that had a different structure, a different form. So that's when we started thinking about to include other stories. And we work with the film the same way we usually work, which is start exchanging ideas. Whoever finds one of the idea interesting kind of adds to the other. We start a dialogue, we develop it, and so we made a list of like 10, 12 ideas that we felt were interesting, and then mostly instinctively, because they were not developed, they were just the initial ideas, we just felt like 2 of them would kind of fit the universe of the first one that we started writing, and so we started developing all 3 of them together.
Jill, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about those first 2 characters. You know, you have sort of, you take some big swings with the memorabilia guy and the sort of stoner vibes guy in the car. Like, tell me a little bit about those choices.
The fun parts, they're all fun parts. That's a nice thing. Everyone's got something colourful. I mean, when you're coming in, because in the first 2 stories, you know, it's just a scene for those guys. You don't want to, you're just crossing your fingers, you're not going to like upset the equilibrium of the world. And you want to have some fun, but you also don't want to overstep it and jump out for the wrong reasons. It was funny that the costume department, Jennifer, who we worked with, is so brilliant and so helpful with that regards, and she showed us so many options. And Yorgos, I think it was Yorgos' idea, and said maybe with the collectible appraiser, maybe he's British, and then we decided maybe slicked hair and an earring and a bit slimy, and then American kind of frat boys stoner vibe for the guy who gets shot in his hand, Jerry. It's just fun. It's just fun. Like, and generally, I've said this before, but you do feel like you're going to go and play on his set. And I felt that on Favorite, and I felt it here. It doesn't. You might get nervous, but it doesn't feel like work. It's just. It really is like it's like a joy. It's like being a big kid.
Well, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of the first story and working with Jesse very closely, who is new to this universe.
Well, that one, compared to the other 2 roles, is very much more written for me. And in a funny way, I have to drive a little bit more. So the writing's very strong. I like the idea that they have this relationship, and of course it's very controlling, but it's also very loving. So it's to find that balance as he's giving these comments, you know, behind them it has to be this kind of warmth and this purpose. It can't be, you know, and that was a fun thing to play with. And of course it evoked, you know, thinking about, you know, various, you know, the social relationships, whether it's couples or, you know, business relationships, and that's fun. So I guess very tough character, but you know, I approached it with love. I tried to love the guy, you know, and that's the fun thing to do, of course, to play against opposites and see what can hold. I mean, some of these things are skewed that, you know, you don't recognize them, but you've got to make them real, baby. You've got to make them plausible. And that's the trick. I mean, that's really more his job. I just try to be there and have it, you know, have a stake in it, have a relationship to it. And it's easy when it's well written because you've always got something to affect the other person with it. You know, it's a game of catch. You know, pitch and catch, pitch and catch, pitch and catch.
Yorgos, what was the production challenges of sort of doing 3 small films consecutively to make this one film?
Well, apart from the fact that we're hit by a tornado while we're filming, but we were all safe in the morgue, by the way. Yeah, when we're shooting the morgue scene, that's when we were hit by a tornado. but nobody died. Nobody had to stay there. Nobody was hurt. Yeah, well, I think going into this film after Poor Things, which is a film which is all in a studio and building sets and this world, we're thinking that we're making a simpler film because we would go again to locations and use natural light and all these kind of things. But at the same time, you realize that, yeah, there are tornadoes, there's alligators, there's a lot of stuff that you can worry about in the real world. So it's never easy. It's always very complex. And more specifically, the fact that there were 3 different stories. It was just the fact that it was basically almost like making 3, full films, because you still have to do the work for each film. You have to create the world, you have to do, the costumes, the sets, the locations, you have to do everything 3 times over. So although the stories are shorter and the filming duration is shorter, you still have done all the work as you would do in an entire film. So I think for all of us, and especially the other heads of departments, costumes, production design, it was a lot of work. It was like making 3 films in a very short period of time.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. We have to wrap. If you wouldn't mind staying in your seats while everyone walks out, but thank you so much.
Thank you.